Good afternoon to you all, and a very warm welcome. Welcome to this beautiful lecture theatre here at the Royal Institution, and a very warm welcome to those of you joining us virtually this afternoon too. My name is Raya El-Salahi, and I'm really pleased to be joining you to host what is going to be a fantastic event this afternoon. This afternoon's Greenhouse Startup Demo Day, which is in its 6th year. We're coming together for the 6th time to celebrate the remarkable achievements of the greenhouse startups. For those of you that don't know, this is Undaunted's unique climate innovation accelerator program, one of the world's leading specialist accelerators. And since its inception back in January 2021, over 190 startups have participated in this program. It's a 12-month program of fantastic, comprehensive support. And the teams that will be pitching to you, presenting their businesses to you this afternoon are the 6th cohort of visionary early-stage founders. They are fantastic, and you are in for a real treat. They're all driven by a singular mission to create a more sustainable and equitable future. So this afternoon, you'll hear from 11 teams, and we're dividing those teams into 2 sections. They'll each be introduced by expert speakers, and we will encourage your participation throughout. We ask you to keep your phone silent, but to hand, so that you can get involved with questions and scoring the teams that you will see. And on the screen now, you can see the agenda for this afternoon. So we aim to wrap up by 4 o'clock this afternoon, at which point we invite you to join us for networking drinks until 7. And if you are really fascinated you will be really fascinated, but by a particular team, and you'd like to find out more, each startup will have a designated standing table in our networking reception, so you can head over to there afterwards if you have any further questions to ask. And if you need help being pointed in the right direction, the friendly members of the Undaunted team are dotted all around the room, and they will assist you if you need any help. Before I hand over to the first of our fantastic opening speakers this afternoon, just a few final housekeeping points. The bathrooms can be found on the ground floor through the entrance you all arrived through. And I'm told there are no scheduled fire alarms this afternoon, so if you do hear one, please exit swiftly following the signs above the doors. That's all covered. Really pleased now to hand over to the Director of Innovation at the Grantham Institute for Climate Change and Environment, also the Director of Undaunted, Imperial College London's Climate Change Innovation Hub, run in partnership with the Royal Institution. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Alyssa Gilbert.
To our colleagues here from HSBC who generously support us, that for the whole Undaunted team, this is one of our most exciting days of the year. It's always inspiring to see the great innovations that our participants have come up with, and to see the progress that they've made, now having been on our program when you see them for about 9 or 10 months. I just wanted to take a few minutes, for those of you perhaps who are with us for the first time, to say a little bit about what Undaunted does and why we do it, and then why I think it's such an important time now for climate innovation and our innovators here. Undaunted is Imperial College's climate change innovation activity. Imperial College is proud to say, at the moment, we are ranked as the 2nd top university in the world in the latest university rankings. We also really pride ourselves, as well as academic excellence, as being a university that's really focused on innovation. In fact, we know that some students come to study at our university because of our approach to taking scientific discovery and actually applying it through commercialization in the real world. So we're really proud to have a dedicated team of over 15 people working on climate change innovation in particular. Of our programs, we work at the very earliest stages of taking discovery and early stage talent into commercializing solutions for impact. And we run a number of programs. For example, we're kicking off a new master's program in clean tech innovation, and the first students are starting next week. But key to our programs is this incubator that we've been running. And in fact, the greenhouse in this form has been running for about 6 years, but we've been running some kind of clean tech accelerator program for 12 years, making this the longest running clean tech accelerator, we think, in the world, consistently. And that means that we've really built an alumni base and knowledge of the support that's required to sort of catapult these people into success. So what you're seeing here today is the result of the hard work of these 11 founders who've been working with us, and particularly with greenhouse to develop their ideas and their technology to the point where they're ready for, and some of them have already received, the first kinds of investment that they need to make their ideas a success. So I'm going to speak a little bit more later on today about the other programs around Undaunted, but this is really clearly an important part of the story. Now, in terms of climate change innovation in general, when we had our last demo day, which was about 6 or 7 months ago, we knew that an election was coming at some point in the UK, and it was this really odd feeling, and I don't know if anyone can actually recall that feeling. It's a bit like saying, do you remember what it was like during COVID? Do you remember what it was like 6 months ago when we knew that there was going to be an election at some point before the end of January 2025, but we didn't know when it was going to happen? Well, what's nice is to be able to be here today and say that that election is happening, and it's sort of immaterial of the outcome. What we can now see is what do the next 5 years look like in terms of regulatory context in the UK. And what we can see is that green economic growth is actually an important part of what this current government sees as the future of the UK and this sort of bright vision of what can happen in the UK future. And that means that what we're doing here is core to that, and hopefully what we're going to see unfold over the next few years in the UK is a support mechanism using things like GB Energy and the National Wealth Fund to help support our innovators. As you know at Undaunted, we're really keen on making our voice heard and the voice of our innovators heard so that those policy directions can be supported. But it's great to be in a position of a little bit more stability at the moment, at least in the UK, where we know that we can be part of that kind of green revolution. So with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Tim Lord from HSBC. Without HSBC support, we couldn't be running this activity, but we also know that they're really committed to that approach to green growth, not just in the UK, globally. So really keen to bring in statement.
Thank you, Melissa. It's really, really exciting to be here today. The first reason it's exciting for me personally is that I think the last time I was in this room, I think it was 1991, when my dad got me in tickets for the Christmas lectures. And they blew lots of things up in very cool ways. And at the time, I thought one day maybe I will be a famous scientist and get to come and speak in that room as well. I have failed so far to become a famous scientist, but you never know, I guess, what might happen. But I did at least get to come back and speak here. The second reason I'm excited is because innovation is exciting, and I think energy innovation and environmental innovation is the most exciting of all. Because we've seen over the last couple of years, energy and environment are the absolute cornerstones of the global economy. They are absolutely core to everything that we do. They are absolutely core to quality of life globally. So what you guys are all doing is, I think, the most exciting bit of the most exciting bit of what we are currently working on. And when I think about innovation, anyone who works in climate and energy spends a lot of time looking at charts, and some of those are pretty sobering, of temperature rise or emissions. Some of them are a bit more exciting and heartening. And my favorite chart of all is the chart of the cost of light over the span of human existence. And 1,000 lumens of light, so that's about enough, I think, to run one of these bulbs for about an hour or so. Our Paleolithic ancestors, it would have taken them about, let me get my numbers right, about 58 hours of work to buy 1,000 lumens of light. By 1800, it was 5.4 hours. By 1900, it was 13 minutes. And now it's about half a second. So that is a transformation, not just in our economy and all the things we can do, but to our fundamental quality of life globally that's been driven by innovation, and in particular, innovation in the last 100 years or so. And I think the big challenge we've got in the space that we all work in is that we now need energy innovation, obviously, to do something else, which is to rapidly accelerate the decarbonisation of the global economy. I started working on climate change about 20 years ago when I joined the UK government, and at that point, we didn't really have a clue how we were going to get even to 60% emissions reduction or 80%, certainly not to net zero. But also we knew it was going to be incredibly expensive to get there. And actually what we've seen, in particular in the last few years, is that actually that cost and that economic trade-off has fundamentally shifted, and I think we're still trying to catch up with that. So if we look at solar, we all know solar's down, 90% in the last decade, and hugely improved efficiency. On offshore wind, the first visit I ever got to go on when I was working for the government was back in 2003. I went up to Blythe to see the UK's first offshore wind farm. That was two megawatt turbines that you could pretty much swim out to if you were willing to brave the North Sea. These days, of course, we now have the largest UK offshore wind farm is 4 turbines that are 4 times the size of that, and the capacity of the wind farm more than 300 times the size of it. And there are, of course, bigger wind farms in the pipeline. So we're seeing that story across a whole range of sectors at the moment, whether it's batteries, electric vehicles, energy infrastructure, CCS hydrogen, all those kinds of things, which is hugely exciting. But I think in some ways the really exciting thing about where we are today, and in particular about the projects that we'll hear from today, is that we're in a new phase of innovation, which is not just about replacing high carbon fossil fuel technologies with low carbon alternatives that do, in effect, the same thing. It's about technologies which are enabling us to redefine what's possible, enabling us to reconfigure the energy system so that we can utilize demand as well as supply. Technologies which improve efficiency, which reduce waste and drive better productivity and reduce the environmental impacts that we have. Innovation, really excitingly, which I think isn't just about the climate and energy technology revolution, but which is about a much broader set of revolutions. So bringing climate, energy, environment together with AI, fintech, and many other technological changes besides to deliver multiple changes across multiple sectors. I think as well, and we see this very much in the projects that we'll hear from today, it's about innovation that doesn't just deliver climate benefits, but delivers benefits for nature and for society as well. And finally, it's about innovation which helps tackle the big geopolitical challenges of our age. So enabling us to deliver better energy security, enabling us to diversify and build new supply chains globally, and really importantly, if we do it right, which enables the benefits of decarbonisation to be spread right across society, both here in the UK and globally. So for all those reasons, HSBC UK is incredibly proud to be involved in this programme, to have the opportunity to support this programme. And in terms of what we're doing on climate change, I'll just say a little bit about that, because I think we have been on a journey on climate change over recent years. We set a couple of years ago a net zero target for 2050, and I think targets are important, but we know that kind of long-term targets are a kind of necessary but not sufficient driver of action. So we follow that up with 2030 targets for the big emitting sectors that we operate in. We set a target of $1 trillion of investment in sustainable finance by 2030. But how we get there is, of course, the important thing, and innovation is absolutely at the heart of our approach. So we've supported nearly 100 ventures through our partnership with Imperial. We're committed to providing $1 billion of financing to small startup companies. And really importantly, here in the UK, we've expanded our capability. So we acquired Silicon Valley Bank UK last year, now in HSBC Innovation Banking. And we did that essentially because we know that innovators need something different. They don't just need the kind of standard bank products that other businesses might need. They need different types of capital, they need different types of support. So we are trying to learn how to do that best so that we can support the growth of this sector. And we're doing it partly because we've got a vital role to play in the transition, and we have a responsibility in the transition, as all large corporates, large multinationals, big global institutions have. But also because we've been funding growth for the best part of 150 years, and we know that the next phase of growth is going to be about businesses and technologies like the ones that we'll hear about today. That's about the global economy growing, it's about the UK economy growing, it's about our customers hopefully growing, and we need to be playing a part in that. So the last thing I wanted to say is just about the importance of where we are today. And by that, I don't just mean fulfilling my ambition by being in this room. I mean being here in the UK. Because we know that the clean tech revolution is accelerating pretty exponentially now. And if you want to be optimistic, and I do try to be optimistic in this space, the first $1 trillion of investment in this space took decades. The second $1 trillion, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, will take about 4 years and will accelerate from there. So we're seeing that happening globally. And here in the UK, we've often talked about some of the things that you talked about, Alyssa: clean growth, green economy, green jobs, all those kinds of things. I remember working back when Ed Miliband was Secretary of State for Energy in 2008 on the low carbon industrial strategy under the last Labour government. And that was kind of the first attempt that a UK government had at looking at how we can drive green growth within the economy. I then worked on the clean growth strategy in 2017 and much else besides. But actually now I think is the time where this stuff starts to move beyond the realms of political rhetoric and becoming absolutely true because of the technology changes that we see and because of the incredible innovation economy that's being built. And the UK has been at the heart of that, right? I don't know if our Paleolithic ancestors were innovating on, producing lumens of light, but certainly since the Industrial Revolution, the UK has been at the absolute heart of energy innovation, about improving productivity, about improving quality of life, and about reducing costs. And I think with the capabilities that we have in the UK, as you say, with hopefully a policy environment that will support that kind of innovation, there is absolutely no reason why the UK can't be a global leader in the next phase of the transition. So thank you very much indeed. As I say, HSBC really, really proud to support this, and we're looking forward to hearing from all the projects today. And I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you very much.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. Many thanks to Alyssa Gilbert too, who you will hear from a little later with more details of what's to come. So it is now time to hear from our first group of climate innovators. And just to run through what you can expect, each team will present a short pitch about their innovation, about their vision, and about how you might be able to support them. And we're inviting you, the audience, to submit questions to the team using Mentimeter. So on the screen, you can now see a QR code, and if you scan that, you will be taken to menti.com. You can also enter the code on the screen if that QR code is not working for you, and that code is 68735138. And there will be time to submit your questions following each pitch. Now, after hearing all of the pitches in each section, we ask you to please score the teams on 3 key points. Firstly, it's the commercial potential. And next, it's the climate impact of their innovation. And finally, the quality of the pitch. And at the end of this afternoon's event, we will award the 3 highest scoring teams. So please do participate. Right. That brings us on to the first session of the day with a focus on materials solutions. Please give a very warm welcome to our first founder to the stage to pitch. Please welcome John from Fab Materials.
Thank you. Hello there, I'm John. I'm co-founder of Fab Materials, and I am here today. To tell you about how our next generation MDF can address 2 huge global problems: deforestation and textile waste. Now, every 10 seconds, we lose an area of forest the size of a football pitch, in part due to a lack of sustainable timber. And every second, we dump a garbage truck of textile waste, and this is because it can't be easily recycled. In the time you're sitting here today, that's enough to fill this lecture theatre to the brim, 10 times over. And this isn't just a problem for the natural world. This is a problem for industry. The MDF industry is under intense pressure to use recycled content in its materials. And on the textiles side, we're seeing brands and legislators working together to increase the rates of textile waste collection. And this is great, but once it's all mixed together, it's currently nearly impossible to recycle. And this is where Fab Materials comes in. We take waste textiles that are destined for landfill or for incineration, and we convert them into a wood fibre substitute that can be used as a drop-in replacement by the MDF industry. Now, MDF is ubiquitous in modern life. It's all around you in your homes, and critically, it's made from virgin timber. So every tonne of textile waste that we recycle into board saves a tonne of virgin timber. And our solution works for all our stakeholders. The textile collectors who supply us have a fraction that they simply can't recycle. The MDF manufacturers are under pressure from their customers to make board with recycled content. And the furniture manufacturers have all made recycled content pledges that they can't meet using a material that's made purely from virgin timber. So the MDF market is huge. Initially, we're targeting MDF furniture in the UK and in Europe, and that's 5 billion. But our technology is applicable to the whole industry, which is valued at 60 billion globally. Now, as a team, we have over 60 years' experience in the approaches needed to commercialize this. I have spent my life introducing new technologies and processes to industry, and I'm a former experienced materials founder. Siddhartha is our operations guru, as well as being our materials expert, and Hannah is our B2B sales mastermind and textiles founder. Now, we've had huge traction. We've secured worldwide exclusive access to the underlying IP. We have made performing prototype MDF boards. We've won an award from Fashion District, and we've received Innovate UK funding. And everyone we speak to is ready to go. How much do you want? We'll send it to you for free. It's what every textile sorter we have spoken to has said to us. Every MDF manufacturer we've approached has said, send us your fibres and we'll run trials. And hot off the press, we've had the option to run our process on one of Europe's top MDF and furniture manufacturers' pilot lines. And we want to be ready to capitalise on this. We're raising 500k so we can bring on a full-time technical and business development team, so we can take our current Innovate UK project and turn that into a full-scale pilot with a top MDF manufacturer, and to build out our network of customers and suppliers internationally. Now, our ask to you today is for introductions to angels and investors who can join us on this journey and help make textile waste history. Thank you.
Open the floor for questions. And once again, just a reminder, please do scan the QR code that you see on the screen now to submit your questions. John, we'll start with one about how much textile waste is generated compared to the demand for MDF.
Okay, well, the beauty of this, and one of the things that drew us to this idea, is that the two are almost perfectly matched. So the UK generates about 1.5 million tonnes of textile waste, and that's the same as the amount of MDF it uses. The EU is about 12 million tonnes, both of MDF and of textile waste. And globally, there's around 100 million tonnes of textile waste and a similar quantity of tonnes of MDF. So it's perfectly matched.
A question from the audience asking if the prototypes are 30% textile, where is the other 70% coming from at the moment?
Okay, so at the moment, the other 60% comes from wood. There's some adhesive in there as well. So we currently are a drop-in replacement for MDF into existing facilities, and 30% is enough to make a really significant impact. In our next project, we're targeting 50%, and we're going to gradually ratchet that up.
Another question asks, can you tell us more about your business model?
Okay, so our long-term business model is licensing. In the short term, we're going to build a first-of-a-kind facility, and this will let us capture the IP that we discover on scale-up of the process. And it will also let us start to secure those long-term supply agreements with the textile waste sorters. But ultimately, once we've protected ourselves, we're looking at a licensing model. Thank you.
End of life. Can it be recycled? What plans do you have to do that?
So that's a great question. So MDF is currently rarely recycled, but it is recyclable. The industry is pushing initiatives forward to recycle it. So there's a company in the UK, Unilin in Europe, have small-scale recycling plants, and we don't break that process. So.
And another question in asks how much more expensive your MDF is versus wood-based.
Okay, so it's less expensive. So we can save manufacturers money, and that's a key part of our business model.
Brilliant. Another question from the audience asks, if IP isn't held in the business, how will you secure long-term ownership of the process?
Okay, so we have a worldwide exclusive license to the underlying IP, and we also have an option to buy out that IP during a funding round. We're also generating our own IP as we go. So we're generating a rich portfolio as we move forward.
Fantastic. Time for another question around your turnaround time to produce the products versus traditional timber-based products. What is that?
Oh, I've never heard that question before, but I guess traditional timber probably takes around 30 years to grow. We can convert textiles in 10 minutes. So, yeah, I think we would compare favourably.
Much faster. What are other uses for such textile waste, and why are you better for the climate?
Okay, so there's a number of, I guess, alternative technologies, and when they have a pure source of textiles, they can turn them back into new textiles. And we don't want to get in the way of that. That's brilliant. That is a sort of true circular approach. The reality is that most of the clothes you're wearing today are probably mixed materials. They'll be polycotton, maybe even with elastane in. And they can't be recycled by most other approaches. So we're taking waste that would be landfilled or incinerated and using that to save virgin timber.
That brings us to time. John, thank you very much indeed. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for getting your questions in there. We will now move on to our next startup to pitch on the stage. Please give a similarly warm welcome to Aura, representing Resting Reef.
Hello, everyone. I want to start this pitch with a small reflection. Imagine if you could continue having a positive impact on the physical environment, even after your own death. My name is Aura Murillo, and I'm here to present to you Resting Reef, an award-winning sustainable memorial service that transforms the ashes of those who have died into beautiful memorial reefs that restore marine life. Just as you can have a tree burial, Resting Reef is the marine alternative to have a positive impact while building a meaningful legacy for future generations. We combine human ashes with materials like crushed shells to create beautiful living reefs that are placed underwater and monitored to enable new life to thrive. This has two major benefits. First is helping protect and restore marine ecosystems. Reefs continue deteriorating due to climate change. By building new reefs, we provide a strong foundation for a whole new ecosystem to thrive. And we also provide socioeconomic benefits for communities to develop. And two, you can leave this world with the peace of mind that your loved ones are taken care of while honoring and celebrating your life. Resting Reef has both meaningful impact and a strong business potential. Every year, nearly 500,000 ashes need a final place to rest in the UK, with 1 in 5 individuals looking for eco-friendly alternatives. Alternatives like tree burial started just like us a couple of years ago and have experienced a steady linear growth from selling a couple hundred memorial trees to thousands every year. On top of that, in the UK, people already pay an average of £5,000 for a traditional burial. We offer a price-competitive solution that brings funds from the death care industry to much-needed restoration. As part of our journey, we decided to start memorializing pets' ashes, giving the shared market potential and the strong emotional connection people have with their pets. We recently reached an exciting milestone by setting up our pilot reef in Bali. Over the next few months, we will be monitoring the progress, but initial observations already show how the reef is providing impact to marine ecosystems and providing jobs for the local communities. We are on a mission to provide our services worldwide. We want to offer our services and open more marine sites from the beautiful coasts of Bali to places like Cornwall in the UK. And we want to offer our services for human memorials and for pet memorials. At Resting Reef, we are very passionate about this mission. Myself, because of a personal experience where my father died unexpectedly and where me and my family had to deal with a funeral that felt meaningless and disconnected. This motivated me to create a compassionate service that could also celebrate life. On the other hand, my co-founder, Luisa, is deeply committed to climate action. Growing up in Norway, she always had a personal responsibility to take care for the ocean and for the planet. Together with our team, we bring the right skills and expertise, and we have a strong track record of grants and awards that can allow us to take Resting Reef to the next steps. Now, we want to invite you to be part of our journey. In February 2025, we will open an opportunity for people to memorialize their pets in Bali. If you are interested in our pet memorial service, or you know someone that might find this meaningful, please come talk to us afterwards. We're also very interested in having conversations with social and environmental impact investors and with philanthropic funds for potential sponsorships and partnerships. Please reach out to us if you want to support us in achieving our global vision. Thank you so much for your time, and we welcome any questions you might have.
Well done, and we welcome your colleague, Louisa, joining us on stage for questions. So again, the QR code you can now see on screen. Please do scan that to submit your questions. Let's start with one to kick us off about why you're using ashes in your reef structures.
Yes, so ashes, or our skeleton, is super rich in calcium phosphate, which is very phosphorus rich, which is also one of nature's main fertilizers. And there's also scientific research showing by adding bone ash to artificial reefs, there is a significant enhance in marine growth.
And we have a question in from the audience asking about what percentage of the final reef is ashes and how much is made up of other materials.
So we've based our formula on the average amount of ashes a person leaves behind, and it's around 3 kilos. And so our reef structure allows for 3 kilos of ashes and still keep the strong integrity in order to withstand marine conditions, which is also very important.
What is your marketing strategy in convincing users to switch to Resting Reef for their memorial services, other than price?
Yes, so we want to partner up with funeral homes, and also in the case of pet memorials with pets. We've also seen that trends show that there is an increase in interest in eco-burial alternatives. So we are providing those alternatives for these people. And we have a lot of sign-ups and interest in the service. So we are confident that this will be an alternative that a lot of people will adopt.
Do these products degrade over time?
So we see these structures biointegrate over time. So that can mean both that nature has fully taken over and you would never recognize there were anything human-made placed there in the first time. There's also the possibility that for example, native oyster reefs or corals have hard structures and they are able to create a foundation themselves after this initial foundation, so that our reef structures could degrade over time and go back into nature.
How do you plan to address the resistance towards not being able to easily visit a loved one's resting place?
Yeah, that's very true. As we are opening now in Bali, we also don't want to directly promote people having to fly to Bali in order to be close to their loved one. So we've designed different alternatives like regular updates, reports, impact reports on how it's going, videos, underwater footage. We also have a memento, which is a miniature version of the reef structure, where people can opt in to have a portion of the ashes in this memento. And they can have it in their home or in their garden or place it somewhere else that also feels meaningful to them.
Is there any key regulations you see as a threat to your business model?
So in the UK, there is no strict regulation on what you can do with the ashes. We see here there's a lot of regulations to put anything on the seabed, so that's something we're working on in order to get the right licenses and approvals for us to start a reef here in the UK.
Okay, and moving on, are you raising? How much capital do you need and what for?
We are planning to raise next year, Q1, Q2. We're thinking about, we're still defining the amount we want to raise. So we want to start the conversation with impact investors to understand that as well.
And presumably that conversation can continue at the networking drinks later if you'd like to find out more. Another question in from the audience, how are the ashes transported to the seabed? What's the cost and environmental impact?
So the ashes is incorporated into the reef structure locally. So it's created by the local communities there next to the beach, and then they are being placed into the sea. Of course, in the UK, there are other technology and facilities like close to harbors, and then they're placed into the seabed and stay into the structure and create this surface of phosphorus for things to speed up the growth.
Okay, we are out of time, but thank you very much indeed.
Thank
well
you.
done. Okay, and just a reminder, if you do have any further questions that we weren't able to get to there, you will be able to speak to all the startups during networking drinks later on this afternoon. Okay, moving on. I'm going to hand over now to our third startup to pitch this afternoon, the founder of Planet Smart. Please put your hands together for Maurice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice. I'm a co-founder of Planet Smart. We make smarter biomaterials for a better planet. The world is literally drowning in microplastics. Since the proliferation of single-use plastics, they have polluted our land, our oceans, and our bodies. And banning plastic straws is not enough. The world throws away 500,000 nappies, menstrual pads, and adult diapers away per minute, making them the third largest contributor to plastic waste in parts of the world. The single largest and most important part is the super absorbent polymer, or SAP, that absorbs liquids and keeps customers and users dry and comfortable. But they are made of fossil-based polyacrylic acid. Regulations and consumer demand are forcing the industry to scramble for new alternatives. A sustainable SAP is the missing link to a less carbon-intensive hygiene product. Planet Smart has developed Planet Zorb, a 100% bio-based, biodegradable, microplastic-free SAP without performance trade-offs. The polymer itself, in addition to a Planet additive that speeds up biodegradation, is unique IP developed by Planet Smart. Our polymer is home compostable, unlike anything our competitors offer, because it is a rigorous benchmark that ensures biodegradability in uncontrolled environments. However, this is a standard. We don't actually recommend tossing your used nappies in a home compost. We achieved this while still hitting 3 industry performance requirements for menstrual pads and nappies. Gone are the days where sustainability meant sacrificing on product performance. I specialize in international business and trade, and my co-founder is a sustainable packaging innovation expert. We are now 7 people, and our commercial team has support from 2 former managers at BASF, the second largest manufacturer of SAP on Earth, and Dr. Goldstein, founder of Procter & Gamble Ventures. To break into this $8.3 billion market, we are going after menstrual pads, then nappies, and we hope to expand into adult incontinence and agriculture, the fastest growing segments of the market. Our go-to-market are white label manufacturers. They take our technology, incorporate it into a hygiene product, and sell it to brands to label themselves. We have 4 LOIs for our samples and 2 industrial proof of concepts from our partners, with revenue totaling £345 million. Planet Smart will start as a raw material supplier, selling B2B sales to hygiene manufacturers. And due to our simple plug-and-play solution that leverages existing processes and infrastructure, we aim to produce our SAP at cost parity. This allows us to take advantage of the 20% profit that's the norm in the industry and the green premium, which from conversations with our partners is up to 67%. Since raising $500,000 in pre-seed funding in February, we've raised an additional $140,000 in non-dilutive funding, including from Innovate UK. We are now raising seed to bring us to a point to produce 175 metric tons of SAP and supply it to customers in our pipeline. We are, today, for the audience, if you are a VC or own a hygiene brand that's open to collaboration, or have experience in scaling up, we'd love to speak with you during the networking session. 100% biodegradable and great performance. Now that's not just smart, that's planet smart. Thank you.
Maurice, well done, and we welcome Gerald to take questions with you. We open up Mentimeter for you to submit those questions, but let's start with one about your advisors. Can you go into more detail about your advisors and the value they bring to your company?
Absolutely. So as mentioned, we have Dr. Sven Sernils, who worked at BASF as a plant manager. He is ensuring our product is plug and play, reducing the barrier to entry of the industry. Also, Dr. Goldstein is an expert in bringing products to market. He is the mastermind behind Febreze and Swiffer at P&G, and so he is supporting our commercial support. We are also looking for expertise in scale-up to help in our next stage.
Okay. First question in from the audience asks about possible safety concerns associated with using a biomaterial next to the skin.
Right now, the current solution that we have is actually using plastic on skin, which already has its own negative impact on our health. And there are still a lot of things that we don't know yet. For our biomaterial, we will ensure that we will still pass all of the regulatory requirements that are required for hygiene products. And on top of that, we're also making sure that across our processes, we're doing like green chemistry and optimizing the materials and the chemicals that we use that will not have a negative impact, not just to the environment, but also to humans as well.
Okay. What's your IP strategy?
We currently have, we're partnering with GT Law, a law firm in the US, who is also helping us create this airtight, watertight IP strategy that will ensure that we patent the end product and also the different materials where different use cases where it will go to in hygiene and agriculture, while also keeping our processes trade secret.
Have you already made commercial sales?
So we have, as I said, 4 LOIs for samples and 2 industrial proof of concepts. Our next step is offtake contracts to produce our polymer that they will then purchase. But where we are right now, we're waiting on more technical development and our scale-up to be able to provide what our customers demand from us.
Okay. Please can you tell us more about how your product compares to competitors?
Right now, our product is actually performing with the minimum commercial parameter requirements that is required for the industry, particularly for menstrual pads, which has a lower requirement for those parameters. And next step for us is to optimize this even further and be at par and even better than our competitors. So right now, our product is actually absorbing up to 32 grams per gram of our super absorbent polymer. So just imagine that. And I'm happy to demonstrate that also during the break.
At what scale will you hit pricing parity?
Yeah, so we're currently building out our techno-economic model and finding commercial sources for all our raw materials. So if you come afterwards, I'll be able to explain a little more and give you more details on that.
Okay. Do we have any further questions while we're waiting for those to come in? No, that brings us to time. Thank you very much indeed. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us on to our next startup to present this afternoon. Please give a very warm welcome to Manraj from Reforma.
During my time in construction civil engineering over the last decade, I took pride in delivering infrastructure projects and making our lives better. But it very quickly became apparent to me that construction has an environmental cost. Now, being an engineer is about solving problems and improving our standard of living. And so I was disappointed to find that it wasn't as simple as this. Construction does make our lives better, but arguably one of the largest components of it, cement, has a huge environmental impact. 90% of all cement factories today still run on coal. You heard correctly, 90%. And so it's no wonder that cement contributes 7% of all greenhouse gas emissions every single year. In terms of concrete, we consume 3 tons of concrete for every single person on this planet every year. That's 3 tons for me, 3 tons for you, 3 tons for every single person in this building. But just imagine a substitute that consumed 25% less energy to produce than traditional processes. It's carbon negative and eliminates coal, bringing cement into the 21st century. And that is exactly what we are doing at Reforma. We are making clay-based cement. We are doing that with a process called pyrolysis-powered calcination. Now, what does that mean? Well, no traditional combustion. Carbon is stored in the process rather than expelled, and production of high valuable resources such as biochar. And yes, there are other companies producing cement solutions out there, but no one in the world is commercializing carbon-negative calcined clay efficiently. So this means we can help with the transition to decarbonizing cement more effectively. Now, the IPCC and the IEA estimate that calcined clay or clay cement will make up 400 million tons of the market by 2050. The market will be about 3 billion in 2030 and 28 billion in 2050. And if we applied our solution to this market, we could save 273 million tons of CO2 every single year. We've already begun partnership discussions in the UK with concrete suppliers and multinationals across France, Switzerland, Germany, and the US. But we begin by focusing our efforts in the UK on ready-mix concrete suppliers. Since 2024, we've already raised £65,000 in proof-of-concept pilot funds. We've secured grants and raised 250k in funds from people like Carbon 13 and the Net Zero Technology Centre. We've produced 200 samples from clays from one of the largest construction sites in Europe, HS2. And we've already begun conversations on LOIs with the UK's largest privately owned concrete company. We've got letters of support from Skanska, Laing O'Rourke, Mineral Products Association, Imerys, a global mining conglomerate, as well as Imperial College London. We're a team of engineers, we're a team of engineers, consultants, business strategy people, and scientists. And we've already got people working in the lab, developing and pushing along down our TRLs. We're currently raising £1 million in our pre-seed today, and we secured 30% of that in soft commitments, and we'll be using that funding to build the first lab-scale prototype of this continuous system. With that, we'll deliver on live demonstrations on real construction sites in the UK, and we'll take that data and we'll use that to do a scaled-up design to produce a 1,000 to 5,000 ton demonstration site in 2026. Decarbonising cement requires ambition and courage, not just from Reforma, but also from investors and other people of the like. So if this is something of interest to you, please come and have a chat. My name is Manraj Sembi. I'm the CEO and founder of Reforma. Thank you for your time.
Well done, brilliant pitch. Let's move on to questions now. And as you submit yours using the QR code on screen now, let's kick one off with the fact you mentioned in your presentation that there are other new low-carbon cement solutions which currently exist. So what's your biggest advantage over them?
Well, actually, compared to traditional, new cements out there, their biggest barrier is the standards of regulations. There's new standards that have to be implemented to actually adopt these cements, whereas ours actually comply with all British, European, and American standards right now today. So if you come and have a chat with us later on, you'll see some of our samples. They could literally be used on any construction site today. I would say that's probably our biggest advantage.
25% less energy intensity is great, says one audience member, but what is your manufacturing plan? Retrofit existing facilities or build from scratch?
That's an interesting question. Well, by 2030, 30% of all kilns today will be end of life, so they need to be replaced anyway. So there's definitely a big demand to produce new facilities. In terms of clay-based cement plants, we currently have the capacity for less than 10 million every year, and we need 400 million, so new plants are needed. But from a technology perspective, we will probably concentrate on isolating and doing the system as a whole, and then refining that to be implementable to old plants globally. So it's more from a technically driven direction. But we do plan to retrofit at some point in time. This actually can be more costly if you retrofit.
Okay. Moving on to another question. How is the quality of the cement compared to the conventional type?
I like this question, actually. We actually perform better than traditional OPC. So I think, I'm not going to use any technical terms, but about 50 to 60 megapascal is what we've seen from traditional Portland cement. And we demonstrated quite recently that we can achieve 68 megapascal. And we're also currently working on improving the early strength of our cement today. So there's no compromise on quality.
What intellectual property do you have on your process?
We filed a patent in June, but I mean, I've got to owe it to the technical team and everything we're doing. We already need to file another patent because we've already found new intellectual property. So the intellectual property is actually on the process of how we've combined these two things, and namely a unique heat recovery in the system as well. So we do have IP, but there'll be significantly more IP developed in the process. Naturally, it's a very tech-heavy innovation.
Okay. Another question then asks whether you're building a plant yourselves, or can your tech be delivered by existing plants?
It could be delivered by existing plants. That would require a lot of upfront readjustment of a plant. What would be better would be to partner with an existing industrial incumbent, and that's what we plan to do. So Imerys Mining, they have 250 global industrial sites. We've already got proof of concept with them, and really we want to push that and turn that into a partnership so we can deliver the first site, so our demo site in 2026. So we've already established what the criteria is for that, and yeah, that's our plan.
Where do you get the clay?
We've been getting the clay from HS2. So this is good for one thing, actually, HS2. Your money is going somewhere. But usually, so a lot of the clay, the way construction works is there's a lot of preliminary activity that happens before construction occurs. So you can get very pure quality clays from the excavation activities prior to the structure that goes up that you see. So you can get clay there, but also the clay that we need is probably one of the most abundant materials all over the world, US, Europe, America, Asia, but more importantly, it's abundant in the places where the next 80% of construction will occur, in the global south, places like Africa and Asia. And our solution is really, it will be able to make an impact in those places too.
Fantastic. That brings us to time. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that brings us on to the final startup of this section. Please put your hands together for Anna and Carla of Replica Biomaterials.
Hello, good afternoon. We are Replica Biomaterials, and we're engineering leather without its carbon footprint. The problem we're addressing is the negative impact of the leather industry on climate change. So the leather industry is responsible for 12% of greenhouse gas emissions. It's a water-intensive industry, and it also generates solid waste and uses toxic chemicals to process hides. Our solution is to develop a sustainable leather alternative. So we do this by using DNA and to produce suitable proteins. And in addition to that, we have built-in color at DNA level. We then engineer microbes, which act as colored protein factories. We harvest these proteins, and we process them into sheets. The material can be used in the fashion, automotive, and upholstery industries. We're entering at the very end of the leather industry value chain, working directly with manufacturers and luxury brands. We completely avoid the need for animals and the dyeing processes of the value chain, and therefore our product will have lower greenhouse gas emissions, will use less water, and will have less or generate less solid and chemical waste. What sets us apart is our unique composition. We have a unique protein mix. We don't use any petrochemicals or toxic chemicals, and we have integrated coloring at the DNA level. Therefore, we completely bypass the dyeing process. Because of these components, we have additional environmental savings.
So the global leather goods market is worth over $400 billion US dollars, and in the future we are going to enter markets of North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific in the segments of fashion, upholstery, and automotive. In the beginning, we will not be able to produce a large amount of our product, so we are targeting the luxury, the small leather goods luxury, and the market is worth roughly $80 billion US dollars. So from talking to our potential customers, we know that they pay between 200 and 500 pounds per square foot of luxury leather. And we are going to price our product at the lower bracket, at the 200 pounds price point, to influence them into adopting our product. We've had significant interest from luxury brands. They all want the same. They want our product to have the same quality and aesthetics as traditional leather. And they want us to be able to scale up production to meet their demands. They are open to test samples and to build a relationship with us. But Hermes has gone even further than that, and they are happy to co-develop the product, and funding is available for our R&D. So this is where we are now. We are finalizing our process optimization. We are very early stage. This was funded by a grant from Innovate UK. Next up will be prototyping. We have already secured 50K from Innovate UK, and then we'll be able to enter pilot production and start a market validation working with brands. We'll be able to patent our processes, our product, and part of the production processes. So we are raising 400K to fund 18 months of operations for the prototyping and pilot production. Then we'll be working with brands and unlock further funding from them, and then we'll be able to co-develop and do market validation. This is our team. We have experience in biotechnology and fashion. Anna has a PhD and leads the R&D, and I will lead the commercial vision and brand partnerships. Through Undaunted, we've had 2 advisors, Antonella for business and marketing, and Dolat for business and finance. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, well done. Okay, moving on to questions, and we'll kick one off as those come in from the audience, with a question about what you think makes your solution better than your competitors.
So there are lots of sustainable alternatives being developed at the moment. That means protein-based, which is our case, means plant-based, means mycelium-based products. We try to mimic the composition, the protein composition of leather, and that means we were aiming to have the same quality as traditional leather. And because of that, we're targeting the luxury market. In addition to quality, we don't use any petrochemicals, we don't use any toxic chemicals, so our product is more environmentally friendly than traditional leather. And unique to our product is the built-in color at the DNA level. So we completely bypass the dyeing process, and that leads to additional environmental savings.
You mentioned colour, and that's the first question we've had in from the audience. Can you produce leather of any colour?
Potentially, yes. We started with blue, but we aim to have a variety of colours and add that customization for our potential customers.
Fantastic. Where do you source your inputs, and how available are they?
So our inputs are from engineering biology. So we take our DNA sequences, which are widely available from GeneBank. If you're a scientist, you know what I'm talking about. And then we then engineer the DNA sequences, and we insert them into microbes, and then because they grow a lot, they make lots of our material, and that's how we process that into the final material into sheets.
And what's the production cost of luxury leather products, and how does your cost compare?
So basically, we've addressed that in the previous slide. So a production cost. So we know we can be comparable to the cost of our competitors. And we are targeting the luxury market because our quality will be superior and we will have larger margins. Do you want to add anything else for that?
Yep.
That's it.
I think that's it, yes.
Will you require bespoke fermentation facilities for your bioprocess?
No, so we can use existing facilities. That's also what keeps our costs down. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
What's the end-of-life process? Can this be recycled?
So we don't have any data on this yet, but because we don't use any petrochemicals, we don't use any toxic chemicals, we're aiming to have a biodegradable material, but we still need to analyze that. We don't have any data on that.
Okay. Another question asks, will the product last longer than traditional leather in terms of quality?
So that's also in development. We don't actually know until we make it, basically. But we aim to have the same quality and therefore the same longevity.
Okay, moving on. Cool traction with the fashion houses, says one audience member. What's your go-to market strategy in the automotive industry?
So that depends on scalability. That's why we start with fashion houses and small
leather goods.
Yeah, because of the quantity of product we can make initially. But once we scale and once we basically can make lots and lots of product, then the automotive industry is one of our target markets.
Will the product last longer? We've had that one already. Let's move on to another question that we had in. Let's ask about the brands that you'll want to adopt your product, drawing on what you've just said. What brands will you want to work with?
We've had interest from Hermès, Chanel, Yves Saint Laurent, just to name a few. But Hermès was by far the most interested one.
Brilliant. That brings us to time. Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much indeed for getting those questions in so quickly. And thank you to all of our startups for a brilliant first round of pitches, a brilliant and very varied first round of pitches. We will now take just a few moments to allow you to score each of the teams you've just seen. A reminder, you just need to head to menti.com and enter the code you can see on screen now. That's 6873 5138. Or far more easily, just scan the QR code that you can see on screen now. And if you're struggling to make that work, you might just need to refresh the page. So I'll just give you a few moments to do that. We are moving on to our second group of fantastic innovators, and you are in for a real treat with the next round. Before then, I'm delighted to introduce our next guest speaker, an expert to open this session, Professor of Entrepreneurial Finance and the academic lead at the Institute for Deep Tech Entrepreneurship at Imperial. Please put your hands together for Ramana Nanda.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak here today. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about some thoughts about what are some of the challenges of financing deep tech entrepreneurship and what would be some of the solutions that we can work on together to think about solving them. So let me get the clicker out. There we go. What you see on the screen here is two charts. One is global venture capital financing in 2010, and the other is global venture capital financing around 2020. And you can see that there's been a five-fold increase in venture capital from about $50 billion to $250 billion over that period. Now, what you probably will find a little hard to read, but maybe you can see up there, is that almost all of that growth has come from information technology related businesses. So you think about it, IT software services, business products and services. There's been consumer, internet and related types of businesses. There's been some growth in financial services. We in this country have seen a lot of that. As a leader in fintech. Drug development and medtech have also grown. There's two areas that have really lagged in this growth. One are hardware types of businesses, and the other are energy and materials. Okay, and you'll see that not only have they barely moved in relative terms, but they've almost stayed constant in absolute terms across that decade. All right, so now obviously as we think about the context behind this, we also know that something like half of the CO2 reductions that we believe we need to get to net zero by 2050 are going to come from technologies that are not currently commercially viable. And so the need to think about innovation and how to get around that challenge is a very pertinent one. I've put some other data here. This is looking at net zero patents as classified in the US PTO. And you can see that the green ones are the net zero patents. The gray ones are all the other patents. Net zero patents constitute a very small but rising share of overall patenting in the US economy. Sorry, not just the US economy, but patents filed at the US PTO, which is often considered the patent office where you want to file your most valuable patents. The chart on the right shows that in relative terms there's been a real growth in these patents. One thing that is sort of less well understood is that if you kind of break down these patents into 6 key areas, they sort of fall broadly into buckets that are related to energy generation storage, carbon capture sequestration, and mitigation in industrial production. These are the ones that tend to be much deeper tech. They rely much more on fundamental science. They tend to cite scientific papers. They're often commercializing technologies coming out of universities. These ones have not grown as much in relative terms, particularly recently. The growth has come disproportionately from the lower row, which is a lot of technologies around transportation, energy efficiency in buildings, and energy efficiency in ICT, which is consistent with that idea that the explosion of a lot of the innovation that has been coming, that has been venture-backed, is really around information technology. Okay? So this is not to say that that we don't like this. It's just to say that when we think about, even when we think about clean tech, we are sort of sometimes missing the fact that the deeper tech side of clean tech is perhaps not getting the same amount of risk capital from venture that we may all like. Okay, so there's 3 sets of frictions that I'll briefly talk to you about, and then pose some thoughts around how we might try to overcome some of those frictions. So the first friction I think that's important to recognize is that the creation and appropriation of value in these businesses can be quite difficult. Oftentimes you're selling to large entrenched incumbents. The margins are relatively small. Your customers could be your competitors as startups. And indeed, the sales cycles are quite long and difficult. Selling to risk-averse customers is difficult. Everyone would love to be the 15th customer of your great technology, but no one wants to be the first 14, right? And so as one thinks about the business and kind of creating and appropriating and capturing that value, it is typically harder than many of these information technology businesses, and we'll come back to ways in which we can think about trying to address that. The second key challenge, in my view, stems from the much greater capital intensity at the early stages of building these companies, not just at the scaling stage. So we know from venture capital that these unicorns that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars at billion-plus dollar valuations are clearly able to attract a lot of capital. But what's the thing that sometimes one forgets is that that is capital for scaling the technology rather than capital to learn about whether it's going to work or not. And so as we think about the experimental stage, where we are actually de-risking that technology, is the capital intensity and the time scale of that experimentation stage that turns out to be very relevant and what makes it much harder to finance the de-risking of these kinds of technologies. And then I'd say the third element is really related to the technical risk, the interaction between technical and market risk, which is sort of something that makes deep tech particularly challenging, and the effective translation of university IP. And towards the end of my thoughts, I'll probably talk a little bit about what we as universities can do, not just sort of talk about what others can do, but what we as universities can perhaps do a bit better to try to support that technical de-risking and effective translation. Okay, so in the last 5 minutes or so, I want to talk about 3 promising areas of effort that I think are worthy of consideration as we think about the players in the room, the investors, but also potentially policymakers. The first is the important role that government can play in backstopping and stimulating demand. So we've seen, for example, in the biopharmaceutical industry, the fact that you have incredible innovation that takes place in part because once a drug is approved by the US FDA, the reimbursement policies for patent-protected drugs allow these pharmaceutical companies to charge the supernormal profits they need to recoup all of the risk and the cost that was borne in that innovation. Okay? So that's a way in which the US government essentially, by committing to pay for or allow these companies to charge these high prices, allows that innovation to take place in the first place. And we see because of that, orphan drugs or other areas where there isn't as much natural demand tend to be areas where you don't have that level of innovation. We've seen, back in the day, the US semiconductor industry benefited greatly from the Defense Department's procurement of semiconductor chips, and they played an important role in making sure that startups as well as large companies were taken into consideration as they thought about the needs when they put out their procurement policies. More recently, in the context of clean energy, Germany played an important role, I think, in driving down the cost of solar power by committing to buy solar electricity at a price that was higher than that produced through coal-fired power plants. But it also shows the political economy of that kind of a policy, that the greatest beneficiaries of that policy, aside from the world in getting the low cost of solar power, were Chinese manufacturing companies that were able to grow and supply a lot of solar panels at a very low price. And so for governments that are thinking about stimulating demand, one thing that often becomes a potential sticking point is who's benefiting from this. Our customers are paying a higher price, but it turns out that firms in some other country are benefiting from it. And so it is a challenging and difficult context to think about. In terms of thinking about supporting and learning experimentation, I think, as we think about this very long time scale that exists from fundamental R&D to an adoption of a new technology, oftentimes we focus on, what is highlighted here as the second valley of death, the large amount of capital that is required to build a first commercial plant or a demonstration plant, where as we mentioned, no one wants to be the first or indeed the 14th customer for this new technology. But there is an area that is, before that, what is talked here, what labeled here as the first valley of death, and that often arises at the pre-commercial stage, and as I see it, is actually a big issue in the UK in particular, in part because the amount of funding available for new technologies is actually quite, there's lots of great funding coming from Research England for fundamental research. There is capital available for commercially viable technologies, but that position in the center, as people are working their way from research into commercialization, tends to actually not have as many clean sources of capital that are readily available. I think that's compounded a little bit by the challenge of some of these EIS and SEIS schemes that we have in this country, where it encourages sometimes angel investors who aren't fully qualified to make investments into deep tech to flood into the market. I think it's great for technologies where technical risk isn't important to evaluate and market risk is the key thing to be thinking about. But when we end up with UKRI smart grants, with companies having to spin out of a university potentially prematurely in order to get matched funding from commercial investors who sometimes don't know what a good and a not so good technology is, ends up actually compounding this problem, in my personal opinion. So as we think about these new organizational and financing models, the position that I would like to make a pitch to you about is that this gap that was highlighted in the chart before is really a gap that tends to exist because we often think that proof of concept equates to proof of commercial value. And in fact, the two of them are very, very different from each other. We often get a lot of money to provide proof of concept funding inside universities, but until we've demonstrated that this concept works in commercially relevant settings for commercially relevant technical milestones and has a team that can execute in a way that is required by commercial investors to engage, we're doing ourselves a disservice in thinking that this is a technology that is actually ready to be commercialized. And so at Imperial, we have come to understand that this gap between proof of concept and proof of commercial value can take sometimes 6 months, sometimes 2 years to bridge, and can take anywhere between £50,000 and up to £2 million sometimes to bridge that gap. And so the organizational model, this is where I think universities can play a role in trying to bridge that gap, is to really think about a model that has the patience of a university, but the commercial standards of a real strong investor, where we provide sufficient non-dilutive funding to get people across that valley of death from proof of concept to proof of commercial value, where de-risking is focused on achieving commercially relevant technical milestones, not technical milestones that we believe are ones that we think are relevant in the lab, and where funding is provided in stages so that there is governance and that there is strong technical and business support that comes alongside that as we help these companies to move forward. And that's something that we've been doing within the Institute for Deep Tech Entrepreneurship, but also the Undaunted program has been working more generally, the Greenhouse Accelerator. And so I'll just end with the one example from the DT Prime program that I have been heading up, which is focused on academic research that is high potential, has the possibility of getting commercial funding, but is too far away from that point currently to actually get that kind of engagement, and to try to work with them, providing that non-dilutive capital, that patience, but also the strong governance across a range of broad areas to help these companies and these ideas get out to the market. Okay? So I think I'm just about out of time, so I'll close here, and thank you very much for your engagement. And if anyone is interested in talking more, I'd be delighted to, you just send me an email. I'd be very delighted to chat with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed to a brilliant expert guest speaker. And that gap that you heard being spoken about there is exactly why Undaunted exists and does the excellent work it does. Talking of which, let's get back to our second session of startups. And for this session, we're focusing on product and digital solutions. And to kick us off, please put your hands together for Ryan from Aid Energy.
Sorry. Okay. Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aid Energy, and we are developing low-cost, long-duration energy storage. Just a bit of background. Wind and solar are now our cheapest source of primary power. Our main net zero plan, the only plan that we have, is to install 30 terawatts of both technologies by 2050. That is the entire amount of capacity today on the planet, 3 times over. And obviously, because it's intermittent by nature, storing that energy is extremely important to balance our system. Which brings us to energy storage, a $3 trillion market with a 10x growth forecast by 2040 without a clear technology solution on how we're going to get there. The main problem is lithium-ion today supplies 90% of the market, but it's limited by short durations and, let's call it, supply chain concerns. So the more wind, the proportion of wind and solar that we're going to add to the grid, energy storage needs to not only be longer duration, but to keep energy prices down, it has to be extremely cheap. Which is what we're doing. We're developing a modular low-cost system that essentially takes excess electricity. We convert that to heat, which we can store in high-density thermal units for days and weeks at a time. And when we need it, we use the bright radiant light that's emitted from the thermal unit to regenerate electricity using our advanced thermal photovoltaic power conversion units. So it's a solid-state engine. It's based, the core thermal storage is based on earth-abundant, very, very cheap materials. And we have a conversion system that we can slowly release electricity for periods of up to 24 hours and much beyond. We're a team of industry experts that combine concentrated solar power with thermal storage and multi-junction PV expertise with decades of manufacturing and project experience around the world. We have a phenomenal team of investors and partners, some of whom I hope you'll meet today. And we've raised enough to build our demo prototype. Looking forward to a seed round early next year. That is basically to take our demo and put it at a utility scale, a megawatt-hour scale unit, with a view to get to our first unit sales end of 2026. Our customers are utilities, independent power producers, industrial users. We're in talks with several UK power and heat networks, power producers around the world, including both in the UK and in the US, and mining and cement companies that are very keen to decarbonize their operation, where energy is an essential component. And all that to meet our vision to be a global leader in long-duration energy storage with a short-term target of reaching 2 gigawatt capacity by 2030, really to meet this $3 trillion unanswered, unmet challenge. So if you're an investor that's interested in our sector, we'd love to talk. We're always happy to talk about pilot projects, especially in the UK, but also global projects. Please reach out. My contact details, I'll be around. So are my colleagues. I can't see them. Ollie and Sanjana will be around. and I'll take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well done. We will open the floor up to questions now, so please do submit those using the QR code on screen now. To kick off, tell us about your technology certification plans.
Well, we've started discussions with the major certification bodies. So there's two main ones, DNV and UL. Thankfully, they are very keen to work with startups that are in the energy storage sector, because everything's limited to lithium ion in the past. So we're getting a huge response, and we're trying to be ahead of the game. You know, when we need to be bankable, at least we'd have gone through that process and get the certification.
We've had a question in from the audience asking, how is the heat kept in the storage system without being lost to its surroundings?
Well, that's where a lot of the engineering comes into play. We have a phase change material in a highly insulated container. We do have to look out for areas where heat dissipates. There's either at the charging point or the discharge point. And our real focus is our target is to get to less than 1% per day energy losses, just natural energy losses on the system.
Brilliant. Moving on, what's your route to market? Who will be the early adopters and why?
Well, we're aiming to be a manufacturer, so our business model is around developing our technology and then moving it on to manufacturer scale. Our business model is the traditional original equipment manufacturer model, where we sell to large clients and different regions, and we have service centers that make sure that the units are constantly in operation, and we are monitoring them and servicing them. So that's our basic business model.
How long is the potential duration of storage for your tech?
So the Department of Energy has put a target of, US Department of Energy, I'm sorry, has put a target of 10-hour storage with 5 cents per kilowatt hour by 2030. And we can easily meet that at 10 hours. In fact, we can reach up to 24 or 48 hours. The capacity will have to be, the discharge capacity has to be smaller, but we can reach those potentially very long durations.
Okay, do you have an IP on the technology?
We have an IP patent pending. We have one in the process. It's gone through international PCT under examiner review since April. The results have been so far very encouraging. We have 2 other IPs that we're pursuing. So we do have a robust IP strategy.
Fantastic. How long is the cycle to build your first battery prototype at the moment, and how many hours can it last for?
Well, the prototype is a small unit. It's the size of a refrigerator. It will probably not be the best performing machine. It's not intended to be. It's intended to support the real focus is our scaled up megawatt hour scale, which is 100 times bigger than the fridge that we're building now.
Fantastic. Okay. What are the competing technologies?
We're in the long duration energy storage sector, so there's various other means of storing energy for a long time. We believe we have one of the lowest cost routes. But in terms of our particular field, there are a few other companies that are trying to tackle the promise of our technology. They're all pre-commercial. We think we have a good technology solution, specifically focusing on operating at more manageable, lower temperatures than some of our competitors. So we think that's a more robust route to market. And it involves more engineering, but we're confident that the upside of focusing on something that's more manageable will give us an edge once we're commercial.
Okay, that brings us to time. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for a great range of questions there. Moving on, please welcome your next startup to pitch. Give a very warm welcome to Emma, the founder of Cyan Skin.
Hello, my name is Emma Money, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Cyan Skin. Now, we are a new carbon capture technology that works through a living algae-based coating solution. Everybody knows that construction is a widely polluted industry, and they're facing pressure from the government, from their clients, and from the public to reduce their emissions. This is Joe. Joe is a project manager for a large construction company, and Joe has the currently impossible task of getting his emissions for his company to net zero. Now, he has a budget and he has a clear plan, but unfortunately, Joe can't get there. And so he's turning to things like carbon credits, which are widely untrusted, and are still not getting him there to the bottom line or getting him there cheap enough and fast enough. But I want to put that to the side for a second, and I want everybody in this room to close their eyes. And I want you to imagine yourself in the middle of the rainforest. And then imagine you could take that and put that on the side of your building without taking up any space. You can open your eyes again. That's basically what we do. So we produce a living photosynthetic coating for the outside of buildings that absorbs large amounts of carbon dioxide. So we come to a site, we apply our coating, and then it utilizes the CO2 and the sunlight to grow and forms this moss-like finish. So these are our live samples. This starts from left to right over time. So this is a matter of a few weeks, and then the one at the end is a couple of months. So it's not finished growing yet. It will continue growing, and you'll get a more luscious effect. But this happens through algae and through a process of photosynthesis. And so algae is a great resource. It is one of the oldest organisms on this planet. So it's been around for a very long time. And so the reason that we use it is algae has this incredible capability to grow extremely fast. It takes just a couple of hours for it to double itself. And this means it's extremely cheap. But more than that, it's extremely efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide. So 30 grams, which is about how much I have there, can absorb the same amount of carbon dioxide as a fully grown tree. So this tree here, and this vial here, over the process of about a year, which is a staggering statistic. So we calculated that if we were to paint all buildings globally, we could reduce the emissions by up to 18%. That's over twice the total emissions from cars globally. How do we make money? So we sell the coating and we sell the carbon. It's really that simple. And why would you trust us? So my background is in interdisciplinary design, working on biomaterials and working with algal researchers, professors, and biologists. My co-founder's background is in business, and we have a great set of us biologists and engineers, as well as more than eight advisors that are directors or ex-directors of large organizations that you can see there. So Shell, just to name an example. We also have advisors in deep tech and algae research. We're mainly funded by Innovate UK and also from Imperial, and we've received a lot of awards over the last year, which you can see on the screen now. We've spoken to over 200 customers. We've got 5 signed letters of intent from some of the major players within the UK and globally, and we have 10 customers in the pipeline. And the main thing they're telling us is, can you come tomorrow? We need this now. So we've done our very first pilot. We've got our first samples outside on the Scale Space building at Imperial. And over the next 12 to 18 months, we're hoping to do 4 more pilots that are going to get us to commercialization and looking at regulations as well. And so we got in June a patent. We submitted a patent for our technology. So now we've got the traction, we've got the plan to get there, we just need the cash. So we're looking for £300,000. So if you are an investor or you know an investor that would be interested and is aligned with our values, we would love to speak to you. Thank you very much, and let your walls do the work and join us to rebuild the world's lungs.
Well done, brilliant pitch. Okay, on to questions. Again, menti.com is open, and please do submit yours now. Let's kick off with one about your client pipeline. Tell us a bit more about that and how you acquired them.
Yeah, so the amazing thing about the clients that we have is actually we don't really do any client outreach at the moment. We're focusing mainly on the product and the R&D side of it. So the clients that we have reached out directly to us, and we've got some of the biggest names in the industry, and we are so happy with that. Yeah.
Okay, first question in from the audience. Can it not become dark brown or black over time? How long can it last?
Yeah, so it changes colour over time. It starts off just like a standard paint, and then as it starts to transition, it increases in pigment. Increases in whatever the pigment is that it naturally is based. So it depends on the species that you work with. And so the one that we're working with predominantly is green. It depends on how it's growing as to how far it gets. There are certain species that are, there's a really, really dark purple species that basically looks black. And they are single-celled organisms. So when one dies, the other starts to kind of grow and replenish itself. So it doesn't die as kind of one organism. It just keeps rejuvenating itself.
Okay. Is maintenance required? What's the degradation over time? And a similar question.
Yeah, so we have focused really clearly on our R&D at trying to make it no maintenance. A lot of corporate partners, they don't want to have to deal with anything. And so we've kind of had that as a key focus. So at the moment, we're looking at the paint just kind of being completely self-sufficient. And we're trying to, looking at working with different species that do something called a symbiosis. So they help in situations where certain organisms may be struggling with one thing. They'll help provide that and support each other in this.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Where is the best point along the construction value chain for Cyan Skin to enter?
Yeah, so at the moment, we are looking at hoardings. So for anybody that doesn't know what hoarding is, they go around the outside of buildings. They're the wooden kind of structures. And these are amazing for us because they're just kind of, you can remove the structures very, very easily. So there's no risk. There's a lot lower regulations in terms of them. It's very easy in terms of painting. They're all about 2 meters high. There's no kind of, you don't need any structures to actually paint them. So we're working with those, but also the customers that are having the construction that have the hoardings, then obviously are in the process of building a bigger building. So it works really nicely in that once they've had their hoarding painted, they're very much like, okay, now we'll move on to a bigger project. You can paint the actual building. So it works really well for us, and it works really well for them.
Fantastic. Okay, next question in asks, how are you handling the moisture necessary for the algae to grow without affecting the building's moisture insulation?
Yeah, so the way that we're looking at this at the moment is there's lots of species that are adapted to different environments. And so we're working with species that naturally live on those dry environments and don't like as much water. So species that exist already on rocks, caves, and things like that. So it doesn't have like a high moisture concentration, but it is something that we record in all of our experiments. As we understand, that's quite key.
Indeed. Okay, what types of walls can it be applied to? Will it work on any material?
Yeah, we have done testings on all sorts of materials, so a lot of the conventional ones. We like substrates that are less porous, so you might need a pre-application before you do the more porous ones like wood, but things like concrete, bricks and things like that. We've also done quite a lot of non-conventional material testing, so even looking at plastic, glass, things like that. They've all been successful, so yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. How is the algae sequestered?
So the algae sequesters the carbon through a process of photosynthesis. So it's a natural process. It's been existing. It's what trees do. It's what every plant does. And it works in the same way. So it uses the carbon dioxide and the sunlight and turns this into growth.
Fantastic. That brings us to time. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And again, a reminder, if you have further questions that we've been unable to get to, there will be an opportunity to meet with all of the startups in our networking drinks at the end of this session. So let's move on. And please welcome to the stage, pitching for our next startup, Max from Undaunted.
Now, I'd like you to imagine being a single parent with 3 young kids, living in a house which is making you ill and forcing you on a weekly basis to choose between heating and eating. Sadly, this is the case for far too many people in the UK, with over 13% of households living in fuel poverty. Clearly, there's a systemic issue with the quality of our housing stock that's causing this, and it's down to poorly insulated properties. And it's not just a UK problem. Europe has over 45 million hard-to-insulate properties, accounting for 5% of total CO2 emissions. But legislation is now coming across the continent to tackle this issue. In the UK, social landlords need to ensure that their portfolios meet EPC C standard by 2030. And legislation is fast on its heels for private landlords. That's a mandate for 5 million homes to be upgraded. But we've been speaking to large portfolio landlords who tell us that they don't have a scalable solution to meet this deadline. Some of them are even considering selling off properties, passing the buck, and putting their residents through turmoil. On the other side, we have our installers, who know they need to scale up their operations, but they can't do it with current supply chains and labor forces available. They know they need a step change in productivity to deliver the scale of this demand that's coming. So how do we solve this issue that has such huge climate and social implications? Let me start with our proof of concept in South Wales. This property was cold and drafty and home to social residents. With our solution, we were able to upgrade this property, creating a warm, healthy, and zero-emission home in just 2 days. Our wraparound thermal envelope solution creates a new efficient facade around the property and solves some of the key challenges of fabric retrofit. Firstly, it's fast. It's 4 times faster than conventional methods. Secondly, it's desirable. We can offer a wide range of different finishes to suit the local area. And finally, it's affordable. We can deliver for a semi-detached house an upgrade like this for £10,000. It's our tech-enabled process which is going to enable this supply chain to scale up alongside our product, starting with a mobile app which allows the homeowner or property manager to collect all the data we need to fabricate and manufacture our kit without an in-person visit. Once we created our kit and fabricated our facade, it goes straight to site, ready for rapid installation by one of our installer partners. And we've got the Wunder team to tackle this challenge. And my background's in materials engineering with over 8 years of hands-on R&D experience. My co-founder, Adam, has a background in software and data and over 20 years as a landlord to social tenants. And we're also joined by Alex and Chris, 2 award-winning architects with experience working in social housing retrofit. We've already made huge progress in the last 12 months, including securing over $500,000 in non-dilutive funding and LOIs from leading organizations in the industry. We're now seeking investors to join us to deliver our next milestones next year, starting with 5 paid pilots with customers, followed by 50 commercial sales. We're going to be investing in materials innovation and software development to scale up our products. And so we're raising $700K, so we're excited to speak with investors who are also excited about delivering our mission of insulating 100,000 homes per year. Let's make sure that no family has to live in a house that's making them ill and can afford to live in a house that's comfortable and healthy. Let's make homes wonderful.
Very well done for a brilliant pitch, and we welcome your co-founder, Adam, for questions. Let's start, while we wait for audience questions to come in, with a question about what sets you apart from current products on the market.
Sure. So current products on the market are traditionally internal insulation or external wall insulation, and both are far too slow, messy, and disruptive. There's estimates that just to scale these, we need to train 400,000 new people into the industry just for this job by 2030, which we think is not really realistic. So we're finding a scalable alternative.
And what makes you 4 times faster than others, asks one audience member.
It's a really good question. So the process for the conventional EWI is that they do a survey, then they apply the usually EPS to the wall, and then there's a wet applied render, which takes time to apply, and then you've got several coats, and then finally there's time for it to dry each of the coats, which usually this takes about 10 days. There's also delays you get with weather, different times of the year. About 20% of the UK and Northern Europe weather means that things are delayed, especially with the larger projects. Whereas what we have is cassettes that you dry fit to the wall, and you can fit them modularly as you go. So it's a quicker process really.
Okay, how long is the lifetime of the material being used?
So that's one of the key areas where we're better than the competition. We can provide facades that will last for a 60-year lifetime and require very little maintenance over that period.
Okay, do you also have to replace windows in order for this to be effective?
The first proof of concept we did replace the windows and doors, and we actually brought them out to level with the facade to create a full thermal envelope. The next iterations of the product, we do have that on our roadmap, that we will need to work with existing windows and doors in place, because not everyone will want a full replacement. We do see, though, there's quite a big market initially that you would actually want to replace them, especially in large-scale projects.
Next question asks, where are the panels made and what are they made from?
So in terms of the materials we're using conventional insulation products, which we can integrate into our cassettes. And the panels are fabricated by ourselves. We're going to be contract manufacturing some of those components, but the sort of assembly and fabrication into the cassette is something we do for each project. And they're made from non-combustible materials at present. So we're using mineral wool insulation, and we're using non-combustible facades, and we're doing some innovation with those materials.
Right. Does it work on all building types, for example, tall flats?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Actually, there are some quite good options for large high-rise multi-family buildings where they have full height and story width panels delivered by a crane, or you can have cladding systems which go on. These, unfortunately, don't work very well for low-rise residential, which is our target. So we are targeting firmly low-rise residential and also solid wall properties that are very hard to insulate any other way. And the way that we're approaching it is a much more so small panels that are manually handleable, because obviously access is a problem in small residential housing, and so is the flexibility and difference of the architectures.
Okay, that brings us to time. Well done, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next to pitch, representing Clima Kick. Please welcome to the stage, Eduardo.
Thank you. Whenever we talk about climate change, we are talking about the greatest challenge of humankind. But it turns out that the greatest challenge is also the greatest business opportunity that we have today. Now, let me put it in a context here. We know that if we want to get to carbon neutrality, we need to invest 150 trillion by 2050, of which the 70% of it is expected to be invested by the private sector. Now, when we look at the private sector, in particular through the project capital life cycle, we know that there are mostly 3 main stages: seed capital, development capital, and infrastructure capital, which is where projects of 200 million and above are securing enough investments thanks to the support of large investment banks. But given the strong commitment in achieving a net zero economy, mid-market players, which are the ones that need to source funds from 10 to 200 million, are struggling a lot in securing capital. And this market segment is growing a lot. And this is because global investment banks do not have the capacity and the appetite to enter in this market segment. This is exactly what we do at Clima Kick. We are building a green digital investment bank which transforms the way funds engage with climate-related investments. By leveraging financial technologies, Clima Kick originates, structure, and distribute green infrastructure investments, scaling climate technologies and reshaping the landscape of sustainable finance. our target ticket goes from 10 to 50 million, and we make money on both origination and distribution. We target an average profitability of about 3%, which means that for a minimum ticket of 10 million, we're going to make $300,000 per transaction. In the past months, we've been very active in the market, and we source projects across the United States, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Today, we are running our first commercial pilot, which is a solar microgrid transaction in the state of California of about 160 million, where we are going for an active bidding process with free investment funds. We released our prototype, which is a B2B platform where investors will have the opportunity to source asset classes across green investments, nature-based investments, and circular economy investments. By clicking, for instance, on the green investment side, they will find a broad selection of investment opportunities across solar, wind, battery storage, or green hydrogen. But this is just a tiny portion of the market. If we sum up Europe, United States, and Asia Pacific, we end up on a 13.5 billion of fees in terms of target market. To get into this global opportunity, I conceived Clima Kick since the very beginning with a global mindset. And we successfully developed our network in the United States, in UK and Europe, and in Asia Pacific. All these efforts brought us to be recognized by Barclays among the top 25 climate fintech startups all over the globe. All of this couldn't be possible without an extraordinary team of 8 people coming from the leading investment banks and technology firms all over the globe. And with such a team, we feel ready in keeping up with our revenue growth, which has as a target value for the first year, 2 million of revenues, and to end up in 2029 with 110 million. Today, we already have 5 million of contingent revenues. To get to these numbers, we are running successfully the first safe round of about 500,000, and we are launching a 4.5 million round, where we are looking for strategic partners as well as climate or fintech VCs, which stand ready to seize a multi-billion market opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, Eduardo, well done. Time for questions. Let's start with one about what your customers are saying about your model.
Yeah, absolutely. I can bring a real case here. The commercial pilot that we are running, the one in California, when we pitched the client, after the pitching, we realized that there was also Goldman Sachs behind the pitching. So when we realized that, we said, okay, the opportunity is gone. After a couple of weeks, we got the call from the client, and he said, look, we're going to give you the mandate because we understand that you understand very well this market segment. For Goldman Sachs, this is not the target market. They focus on large transactions, so they will never pay the same attention that you are going to make in this deal. So I think this is a very good traction that we got with our customers that we are seeing also in other deals.
Okay, a question in from the audience. What's the minimum investment and liquidity for investors?
So let me clarify on the investors. On the investor side, depending on how we structure the assets, we distribute these asset opportunities to traditional finance players, such as climate funds, infrastructure investors, or family offices. If it's a digital asset, we distribute their investment to digital asset funds. The minimum ticket is about $1 million per transaction, where depending on the kind of assets, this threshold might be larger than $1 million.
Okay. Moving on, given the low confidence in existing offset schemes, how can you give customers absolute confidence their investments are verified for true climate impact?
This is because of the underlying assets. What we are moving here, and one of the issues that we are addressing is greenwashing, which happens because whenever we talk about ESG funds, ESG investments, those targets are set at corporate level. So it's very difficult to track the way the Treasury is going to use their money. In our case, we're moving from a concept of corporate funding to project-specific, so that the use of proceeds must be linked to the development of the specific project. And we do that by the means of an SPV, which raise the funds and distribute those funds to the specific projects.
Do you have a balance sheet, or is your service based in the facilitation between projects and investors?
Not as of now, because that would mean another kind of business. That would be, let's say, more an asset manager. We are not an asset manager as of now, because we would need specific licenses and capital requirements that we cannot have today. So what we do is the traditional American investment banking model, which is sourcing the asset, structuring it, and distributing it. We don't hold the risk. We just facilitate the two counterparties, the origination and the distribution. So capital seekers and capital providers.
Okay. Who are your competitors?
There are different players entering into the space. There are companies focusing on tokenization of assets when we talk about digital assets in particular. But we beat the competition given our strong focus on climate assets. Very few companies has such skills and expertise in this segment, specifically in the mid-market segment. And on the business team, we all come from this background.
Okay, do we have time for one more? We do. Do you have to underwrite the investment to win the mandate?
No, absolutely not. We don't underwrite the investment. We just bridge the two counterparties, and then in case there is a match, then the investors underwrite the opportunity with the project developer.
Brilliant. That brings us to time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, that brings us to our penultimate pitch of the afternoon. And for this, I'll hand over to Alan from Isometric Outcomes.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Alan. I'm the founder of Isometric Outcomes, and I'm here to talk to you about Estimator, our regenerative dehumidification system for bathroom. Bathroom is one of the places where we consume a lot of hot water, and the production of that hot water is both carbon and energy intensive. 1/5 of our energy bill are related to the production of that hot water. One daily 10-minute shower is equal to 220 kilograms of carbon emission per year per person. The steam that results from that hot water also, when not treated, can lead to excessive humidity in a bathroom. Current regulations stipulate that each bathroom must have some form of ventilation, but current systems are failing and leaving our bathroom prone to mold. A ventilation system that does not work can lead to excess and unnecessary carbon emission, a waste of energy, and a ventilation system which is not perfectly working sometimes is difficult to repair. The installation process of a ventilation system could sometimes be disruptive. It can also be long and difficult to do. If you don't have a ventilation system in your bathroom, it could be costly, both financially and in terms of your health. Our solution is the Estimator, our regenerative dehumidification system, which offers the following benefit: mold prevention, reduction of energy consumption, and also reduction of carbon emission. The way the Estimator works is that it sucks in the humidity, goes into the heat exchanger. The excess heat is processed and used for you to shower straight away as you are in the bathroom. And then the humidity is processed and turned into water droplet that fall down our drop tray. In terms of market opportunity, there's about 30 million buildings in the UK. 20% of those buildings have inadequate ventilation system, and 6 million of those buildings are in desperate need of bathroom ventilation upgrade. In terms of go-to-market strategy, We will be targeting both residential and commercial building. We'll be working with hotel, care home, hospital, and listed homes. And then we're also planning to work with new build later on in the future. Our route to market will be to work with basically anyone who has a bathroom. That will be really appealing to them because we will help them, first of all, save money, save energy, but also help them reach to the goal. We've secured some trial with some hotel and are currently in talk with some local authority to conduct some trial with them as well. We are planning to produce estimator for £50 and sell it for a minimum of 150, which will give us a profit margin of about £100 minimum. This is a projection based on us selling 1,000 units in the first year, 20,000 units by the third year, and 50,000 units by the fifth year. There's some alternative out there, but none of them offer everything that we are offering. The proof is that mold is really common in the UK at the moment. We conducted a test with a national physical laboratory. We showed that we are better than an extractor fan in terms of bathroom heat loss, installation time, installation cost, running cost, and also carbon emission per year. We are a small team, and we are planning to grow by hiring commercial director, marketing consultant, assembly line team, and installation technician. This is an outline of what is our roadmap towards commercialization. We are in a phase 1 right now where we are piloting and also certifying our product. The phase 2 will be mainly initial fundraising and plan for the factory, for the assembly line. Phase 3 will be assembly line layout and then expansion of the team, and then phase 4 we will be launching our product to the market. Our ask is introduction to the market, to the people who have potential pilot for us, and then we hope to have initial conversation with investor as we seek to raise in Q4. Thank you for your time.
Okay, that brings us on to questions. And while we wait for them to come in from the audience, let's start with one about your target audience. Talk to us a bit about who that is.
So as I mentioned earlier, everyone who has a bathroom can use us. But there are people who are really in desperate need of some kind of ventilation. And those are people who live in listed houses because it's difficult for them to retrofit some kind of ventilation system.
A question in from the audience about their specific setup. I have a steam room, they say. Can this help dehumidify my steam room?
So to answer straight away, you have a steam room or a bathroom. To clarify, if it's a bathroom that steam up all the time, yes, it will help it. Why I'm saying that? Because we conducted a test with National Physical Laboratory, and then compared to an extractor fan, we were 10% faster at removing the steam in your bathroom.
Okay. Does it work when the shower's not running?
Yes, it still runs when the shower is not running.
Moving on, how does the system help to save energy?
So that is another test that we conducted with National Physical Laboratory in terms of heat preservation in a house. So if you use an extractor fan, you lose 5% of the heat in your house in 10 minutes. So already on that aspect, we are winning. Second aspect is in terms of the heat. When you're generating the heat as you're showering, we are recycling the heat for you to preheat the cold water that is coming into your bathroom. So that is how we do that.
How much water and heating can this save?
Whew. Water and heat, that's a tricky one. We don't deal with water. We're dealing with the heat mainly. And then what we've done, as I say, the fifth of our energy bill are for energy production, like the hot water in your bathroom. And we are helping you save roughly 20% of that energy, of the fifth of your bill, basically. I don't know if I'm clear enough.
Yeah, that absolutely is. What's the cost? How does this compare to alternatives?
So I had a graph earlier. So it showed that all the alternatives, they say with the humidify, it's good for ventilation. But the problem with them is that First of all, it's really difficult to install. You have to have ducting system. We don't need any ducting system. You just plug in our system, and then it does all the dehumidification for you. And you also recycle the heat at the same time as you're using it.
Do we have time for another question? Yes. Does it require external access?
No, that's what I just said. So you don't need access to outside. So if you think about having like a cruise ship, you have thousands of bathrooms there, and then the architect will probably have a headache trying to figure out how to, like, duct everything. With us, it's straight away, you have your dehumidification action happening. So no.
Is it powered by electricity?
Yes, it is powered by 12-volt power supply. So it's fine, even if there's a bit of electricity outrage. Won't hurt anybody. But for comparison, you have an extra power shower, which is powered by 220 volt. So it's secure, and then nothing can happen that is wrong.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And thank you for a brilliant range of questions there. That brings us on to our final pitch of the afternoon, last but by no means least, representing FireEx AI. Please welcome Lazaros and Alexis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexis, this is Lazarus, and we're both co-founders of FireEx AI. At FireEx AI, we're developing the next generation of global wildfire risk assessment tools. I took this picture about a month ago when I was evacuated from my home in Athens because of a wildfire that was approaching. It was really shocking to wake up in the morning and having to gather all of your belongings and decide what you're going to take with you and what you're going to leave behind and possibly never see again. Wildfires are a global problem. Last year, there were significant financial implications through wildfires. Also, there have been significant tolls on the environment, with large natural habitats being destroyed and large amounts of forests being lost to flames. To put that into perspective, last year alone, globally, wildfires emitted more than 20 times the total CO2 emissions of the whole UK. Wildfires pose challenges for many different sectors. Fire departments have to tackle larger, more severe, and more frequent wildfires every year. And with limited resources, this is a very difficult problem for them. Also for insurance companies, growing risk every year and having difficulties projecting this into the future is a problem they are facing, especially with climate change. It is important for society to adopt the necessary tools in order to become more resilient towards this global problem. This is why we at FireEx AI are developing the next generation of dynamic wildfire risk assessment tools. Our risk maps are applicable on a global level, and we take more than 20 different factors into account in order to deliver a precise and state-of-the-art risk assessment. We even take different climate models into account to see how the behavior of different wildfires will change in the future.
This is a risk map that we generated for a region impacted by wildfires earlier this summer, where in darker red you can see higher risk, and in lighter red you can see lower risk. We compared our prediction with the actual fires that happened, shown in the shaded region. And as you can see, we have a quite high accuracy in classifying the burned region as high risk. And we were consistent in doing so also for other fire case scenarios. Our technology can be used by fire departments in order to understand better the areas of high risk and mitigate the effects of these fires by adjusting their limited resources more effectively in the field. Also, insurance companies can understand better the risk of their insured properties and take actions to mitigate the risk of their portfolios. Also, they can project the risk to the future and understand how their portfolio risk will evolve with climate change, adjusting their prices accordingly. Our tool can also be used by other sectors, such as municipalities, carbon credits, and also real estate agents. We're a multidisciplinary team of diverse expertise, ranging from fire modeling to climate research and machine learning. And we have access to experts in business and technical aspects, thanks to Greenhouse and also CGFI. If you work in the insurance industry, or in a governmental agency impacted by wildfires, we would like to talk to you later in our stand. Thank you very much.
Right, time for questions. And as we open up menti.com for you to submit those, let me start with one about how you started your pitch, which was the shocking story of your personal experience in Greece with wildfires. This seems to be a problem for hotter regions. Are there any customers for your product in the UK?
Due to climate change, this has become already a global problem and will become more in the future. And actually, wildfires in the UK are increasing, and in the past few years have been increasing a lot in areas such as Scotland and Wales as well. So we think that in the next few years will be a problem for the UK and not to be underestimated.
Okay. What data do you consume to come up with the predictions?
We have many different data streams. We also use satellite data, but we use a lot of data that we generate ourselves through our physical models. And we basically use all of these different data sources in order to create a state-of-the-art risk prediction.
Okay, moving on. Can you extend to other types of natural catastrophe?
We have a very modular framework that we use, and it is possible that we can use it also for other natural catastrophes, but fires is quite a difficult one to tackle, so first of all, we're going to go with that, yeah.
Is your business model SaaS or climate risk consultancy?
The business models that will provide the risk maps and the data to the companies or to the fire departments, and they will use them to adjust their strategies or their pricing accordingly. So it's a B2B.
Okay. Where are you in the product development phase?
We generated a minimum viable product that works for Cyprus and Greece, the whole Mediterranean region. We're trying to test the tech in a smaller region, for example, for Cyprus. And when we complete this phase, we go for a more global product, hopefully within the next period.
Okay, moving on, there's a lot of activity in this field. Who are your biggest competitors and how do you differentiate from them?
That's true, there are quite some competitors, but we are trying to bring more advanced analytics and more advanced models in this. The biggest ones are in the US, and we're trying to bring this technology to Europe, which lacks quite some prerequisites and some data. So we needed to gather this data for Europe. We developed our model and trying to combine physical modeling and data-driven models, which is the competitors are mostly either purely data-driven or purely physical modeling.
Okay. What machine learning models do you use? How does this enable efficiency in your product?
So we use many different machine learning models, that we've developed in-house. And these are quite important for us to be able to run our physical models on top and also calibrate these. And this is basically the technology that we envision that we can scale it up to a global level, yes.
Fantastic. Where wildfires are sadly initiated by human arson, does this add a level of complexity and error to the real risk beyond what your tools currently predict?
Yeah, so that's very true. Most wildfires, at least here in Europe, come from human causes. But we also take that into account because it is very important to be able to see where human activity can play a big role. And this is definitely something that we have incorporated into our models because it's very significant.
Are you giving insurers a tool or an excuse with which to price out or exclude homeowners in vulnerable areas, asks one audience member.
We are also planning to do some mitigation strategies for homeowners. So the idea is to advise insurance companies of high-risk areas, and they will advise our customers to do some specific actions in order to reduce their risk and reduce their pricing strategy. So the insurance fee will be decreased after the risk is decreased by the homeowner.
Okay, that brings us to time. Well done. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for a brilliant range of questions. That brings us to the end of our second group of innovators. They have all brought brilliant pictures to this stage. And once again, we'll now just take a few moments to allow you to score each of the teams you've just seen. And the QR code is back up on screen. You can head to menti.com, use the code 68735138, and a reminder that you may just need to refresh your page to make that work. So I'll just give you a few moments to get those scores in. Okay, I'm seeing lots of people looking as though they've managed to finish the scoring process. Please do feel free to continue if you haven't yet. And while we wait for those scores to come in, it gives me great pleasure to hand back to the director of Undaunted. Please welcome Alyssa Gilbert back to stage.
Okay, so this is where I'm like filler. I hope I'll say something interesting, but this is while the judges are collecting your scores, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what to look out for, what's coming up at Undaunted. You're some of our key stakeholders here. Before I do that, I hope that you'll all agree that that was really, really impressive. Yes? Are you alive? Yeah? Even though, you know, we have some insight and we work with these innovators, and I remember when we were doing the boot camp, which is at the beginning of the process, after they've applied, we invite them and we have to select from a group of about 25, the ones that come on the program. And I remember these discussions with some of those people. It's amazing to see the journey that they've gone on and how well they articulate their propositions. So before we get back to the prize part, I think we'll all agree that they've really made incredible progress over the 9 or 10 months they've been on our program. So what's coming next for Undaunted? I'm going to talk about 3 things. So first of all, you're already here to see those people who come on our Greenhouse Accelerator program. We are hoping to continue to run this program into the future. So if you're someone who's a budding innovator or you have a great solution and you're sitting there in the audience thinking, I really want to go on this program, I hope that if you're in that position, that's what you want to do. We're going to be opening for the next round of applications probably early in 2025 in January. So that's something to look out for, but sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already, and then you'll find out about that. For those of you who have enjoyed seeing these pitches today, we're going to be having another pitch day in about 6 or 7 months, probably around March or April next year. So that's when the next batch of innovators will be ready to present to you as well. So those are 2 important milestones to look out for the greenhouse. In terms of other things that we're doing at Undaunted, as I said earlier, we're really rooted in bringing very early stage talent and scientific discovery through the innovation pipeline. And so we've got two interesting initiatives going on at the moment I wanted to share with you. The first one is a program we call the Climate Solutions Catalyst. And this project is looking for research that has the potential to be commercialized into a climate solution, but at the moment is sitting there somewhere in a university, perhaps in the UK, and not being used yet. So we have a great team at Undaunted who are currently figuring out how we can look for those ideas and then apply some of the experimentation that Professor Ramana Nanda was talking about, some extra capital or other kinds of interventions to help take that early stage research through to the point where perhaps an innovator can be standing on this stage talking about making it a commercial success. So that's really exciting for us because that helps us plug in our academic and research expertise into this innovation funnel. So that's one project we're working on. And if that's something that interests you, come and chat to me about it after this, and I can introduce you to some of the people in the team who are working on that. The second newish project that we're working on at the moment is looking beyond the UK. So we've been running some kind of climate innovation activity in the UK, as I said earlier, for over 12 years now. And we've got quite an established approach and an ecosystem and a role here, and also connections to some, and some of you I know are in the audience too, some collaborators in other parts of the UK, particularly university ecosystem. What we really want to do now is make those connections to other similar ecosystems in other parts of the world. We know that the climate change challenge is global, and taking commercialization as a solution, we need these solutions to be scaled and sold and used in all parts of the world. Similarly, there are innovators operating in other parts of the globe who may want to come and access some of the skills, technical expertise, or the markets that we have in Europe, and some of that investor base. And we want to try and make that easier by building global connections between hubs of climate innovation like ours. So at the moment, someone else in my team is looking into the idea of connecting global hubs of climate innovation around the world, possibly through those that are based at universities like ours. So again, if you are internationally facing, or you come from another part of the world, or you're interested in how we can connect globally, then again, please come and speak to me later, but that's something to look out for later on. So, looking to the people doing the calculations, how are we? 1 more minute, okay. Good. So those are the main projects we're working on at the moment. And actually, I'll take this opportunity, since I have 1 more minute, to talk about the one other thing that we're doing, like a big flagship project that we're doing at the moment. So as you'll see, which was amazing to see, particularly today, we have people with solutions that cover a range of sectors, and some of those sectors are established, but these solutions are new. So you see battery storage, new kinds of battery storage, trying to enter a very established kind of energy market. You see that home insulation solution trying to enter a very long established market, the household construction market. Similarly with the solution that we can use in bathrooms to remove mold and so on. These sectors that they're trying to enter, that our innovators are trying to enter, are often very established and have very traditional mechanisms for doing their work. So we're running a project at the moment with the built environment sector called the Retrofit Accelerator. And what we're doing in that project is bringing together people in the use sector, in the construction sector themselves. And we're introducing them to innovators, and we're trying to understand what are the frictions that stop traction with this new innovation in this very old and established sector. And again, as a university, we are trying to use our convening power and our ability to look at things at a systems level and our interest in looking at things at a system level to try and unblock those challenges that individual innovators face when they're trying to do something really revolutionary to the markets. So those are the things that we're kind of trying to do. At the moment, we're doing that in the building sector, but I genuinely believe that we need to do that in every sector. So if you are someone who works in a sector that you recognize is traditional, but wants to be ambitious about their climate and use climate innovation, then come and talk to us, and we'd be delighted to think about running a program in your sector too. Was that enough? Yay, it's good. I don't know what I was going to do next. I'm very bad at singing, and that would have been a bad choice. So no karaoke. We're safe to go to the prizes.
We are indeed. Very well done on filling there, but I'm sad that we didn't get any karaoke. Okay, I'm going to ask you, let's just stay with us on stage, because we are now going to award our 3 highest scoring teams, and we're going to invite those teams onto the stage for photos. And I'll ask that you keep that applause going, because we have a number of teams upstairs, so our winners will have to make their way down a flight of stairs. So, with no further ado, I'm really pleased to be able to announce the winners of our audience votes this afternoon. And starting in 3rd place, please join me in congratulating Cyan Skin. Stay nearby, if you could. Thank you. And well done on keeping that clapping going. Well done to Emma from Cyan Skin. Moving on to our next highest scoring team. And in 2nd place, please give a huge round of applause to... Well done. That brings us on to our 1st place. And please join me with a huge round of applause for our top audience vote winner this afternoon. That is Fab Materials. And if we can invite all of our winners back onto stage for a quick group photo, that'd be fantastic. Fantastic stuff. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you so much, and well done to all of the fantastic teams who've pitched today. A special mention, of course, to our audience vote winners. Our thanks to you for being here in person and for submitting a great range of really diverse and detailed questions, and to those of you joining us virtually too. We now invite you to join us for drinks in the beautiful library and Georgian rooms of the RI, where you'll find each of the startups on their allocated standing table. And if you need any help finding your way, the Undaunted team are all here. I just ask that you please please leave this space by dropping your lanyard into the boxes at the exits, but just hang on to your name tag. And that just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed. Let's make the most of the opportunity to connect and network and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.